Hi, and welcome to the NIST, NFPA 2400, Drone Flight Training Fixture Session, at the 2020 Summer Conference, for Drone Teachers. This session is led by Dr. David Barber, the NCDP Education Consultant for Drone Technology in NC High Schools, and Mr. Wayne Bailey, the Lapse in Drone Technology Content Specialist. As we begin this session, there are 4 objectives that we must keep in mind when we're focusing on a high school drone technology program. The first objective is leading the student to obtain his or her FAA Part 107 SUAS remote pilot certification. The second objective is teaching the student basic drone flight. The third objective is to prepare the student for possible entrepreneurship as a drone pilot in his or her own business. And finally, the fourth objective is to teach the students specialized skills so that they would have a competitive advantage over other entry-level drone pilots, enabling them to stand out when it comes to possible job career opportunities. This session will primarily focus on the second objective, basic flight. Several questions we have to answer if we hope to achieve our objective. 1. How do you teach basic flight to students? 2. How do you verify they learned it? And finally 3. How do you prove they have mastery of basic flight to others? To answer these questions, we began to look at what industry used to obtain that same objective. After extensive research, we identified what we felt would provide the skills and the evidence needed to achieve the objective. We identified a standard from the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, that focused on preparing public safety professionals to fly drones. NFPA worked with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, to develop testing standards that could be used to verify drone operators had the basic skills needed to fly before they were allowed to fly expensive equipment that might get damaged. This standard is NFPA 2400. Here's a diagram of the NIST standard test method for small unmanned air systems. As you can see, this testing standard consists of several stations with buckets. Students can perform maneuvers around these buckets in predefined sequences, as directed by the teacher. The buckets would contain images or letters that the student would have to photo or video to verify they completed the task. The timing of those flights would also be used to determine proficiency. How do you build the NIST standards? The process is very straightforward. We will look at the design, the blueprints, the parts, a parts list, and the pieces, a step-by-step picture of the finished product, at each stage. The first picture we want to look at is the short standards. As you can see, it is basically a 4x4 with several 2x4s cut at angles, with one 2x4 on the top. It is important to note that anchor screws were used to allow a bolt to screw into the 2x4, without requiring it to be drilled and re-drilled every time the standard was assembled. This design is different than the videos that were produced by NIST. These standards were designed for durability, with use in a school setting. This blueprint provides the exact details needed to complete this standard. 3 of these standards will be built exactly the same. Once the standard is completed, the 2-gallon buckets are next added to the fixture, as shown in this diagram. To assemble the buckets to the 2x4s, simply requires drilling a hole in the center of the bucket, and then using a screw to tap into the anchor screw. This should be constructed to hand screw the bolt, making it simple to put up and take down. A 1/2-inch nut driver would be helpful, and should be included in the overall design materials. Finally, support outriggers can be added to the standards if desired. After completing the build, it was determined that outriggers for these standards did not appear to be necessary. The design is included, in case later these additions are desired. As shown here, the short standard includes a built-in level. The picture in the middle shows the compact storage of the prop and the buckets. The picture to the far right shows the short standard with its buckets fully deployed. Note, there are no outriggers added to these props as previously stated. These 2 standards are used for Station 1 and Station 2. Station 4 is designed exactly the same as Station 1 and Station 2, with the exception of only having one bucket mounted on the top, and none on the sides as in Station 1 and Station 2. That means that the actual prop is designed the same for Station 1, Station 2, and Station 4. Any of these 3 props can be interchanged with each other. Station 3 is the most difficult to build, to store, and to assemble. The first section is the base, and is designed similar to Station 1, 2, and 4 with the exception that the 4x4 in the center is taller. The center section for Station 3 consists of a junction box that will fit around the base and provide a junction for the top. Remember, 2 buckets are mounted on this middle section, and must be aligned with the base on one side, and the top on the other side. The top section for Station 3 is designed similar to the base section, but with its 2x4s are pointing up from its 4x4 center, as shown in the diagram. This diagram shows the alignment of the buckets. As noted, the 4 buckets on the bottom section are mounted exactly the same as those on Stations 1, 2, and 4. There are 4 buckets mounted on the middle section. Care must be taken to ensure alignment with those slots, so that the 2x4 aligns to the hole, for the 4x4 for those buckets. The top section is also similar to the base for Stations 1, 2, and 4, but their buckets are pointing downward. Finally, Station 3, due to its height and weight, would require the additional outriggers to ensure stability. This diagram clearly shows how to build and assemble these outriggers. The picture on the left shows all Station 3 parts prior to assembly. The picture on the right shows Station 3 completely assembled, including its outriggers. The total cost of parts for this NIST standards is between $259 to a high of $377 with the outriggers for all standards as shown. This parts list can be provided to your construction department, who could easily have their students build a system for you, for the cost of parts. There are outside companies and individuals who also are willing to build these NIST standards for an additional fee. Contact information will be added to the drone Moodle for your review after the summer conference. Now that the standards have been built, let's unpack them. I would suggest laying out the course before assembling each individual station. These stations are not easily moved after assembly. Now, let's see how we assemble the NIST fixtures that we have built.
This is station number 3, and on station number 3 is the most difficult station because this is the one that's about 8 foot tall, and it has the riggers on it. The others do not have riggers. So this is the one we have to get set up first. Again, you need to make sure you position it in the right place you want to align because it's not going to be easily movable after you get it set down. This was designed so that the riggers can be moved up and down. As you can see, there's a bolt in the side that we can tighten up once we get it adjusted for the level of the land. We did include in these, they do have levels so that we can identify the level, but there's no even level until you get it in. Now, on the bottom of these riggers that's joined into the 404 is actually a 2-inch bolt slot. So all we have to do is put, and we've got it designed so that they can actually screw in by hand. Our recommendation is though is to get a handheld nut driver to make it easy. That was already in. I need to get my washers. And then we'll just put them together. So that's what we'll do that next, and then after we get that done, we'll take you to the next step. Okay, so as you can see, the way these work is they you put this in here. There's actually a screw already behind it, a hole for it. So you just line this up in here. It's really not that difficult to find the hole, and then you can just screw it in with the hand. All right, once that's done, you can go ahead and level if you want to. See the level here? And we can see the level is up to here. So you can actually pull this up to do the level, to level this up. You can pull this up so that it's level. And then once you get it up level, you just tighten the screw down so that it stays level. Then you do the other side, same way. This one's already pretty much level. I wouldn't mess with it. But then what you want to do is make sure that you do tighten these things in because they'll just bounce around on you just in case any wind or something occurs. Tighten those things down, and that's it. So the riggers are set. So it wasn't that big a deal. Pretty easy, right? Okay, now on to the next step. Okay, so the next step to put together this stage 3, again, is the most difficult, is you need to make sure that you find our tap right here for this side because it's got to line up with this junction box. You see at the bottom it says bottom, there's a screw here, and then if you look on the other one, it has top on this side because there's a top bucket that'll go on there. So what we're going to do is we simply take this up, it's not that difficult, and it will slide right over top of this, into here. This hole here should join with that one. And so that's how that works. Now, the most challenging part of stage 3. You know, we already did the leveling. Well, we're going to do it again because we have to actually lean this thing forward to the ground to put this other piece in, because this piece is very helpful. Unless you have multiple students. If you have students doing it, you can do this. But if you don't have students, then you have to do something different. So what we have to do is we have to find this bolt right here. We have to find this bolt right here because this is going to be the top bolt. And as you remember, this one says top, so that means this got to line up with this. So we're going to take this here, pull this up here, and it's got to fit in here. Again, it's just kind of, it's not heavy, it's just awkward. And once you line it up in here, it lines up perfectly in there, then you can just bring it right back up. So again, one person can do that. Okay, so at this point in time, what our recommendation is, you're going to have to put the buckets on the top. But to get the buckets on the top, we want to make sure that this is secure. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and put the buckets in that goes on the junction box. So as you know, these already have these screws. We'll put it to the bottom of the bucket. You're going to put it in here, and it should line up with that. Again, it should line up straight forward with that. And screw in. Which it does. Boom. Pretty simple, right? All right, then when we're done with that, we're going to go to the other side and do the same thing for the bottom one. Again, this is to make sure that the stuff is in place. So then once you get in, just again, just tight, make sure you may have to push the wood, because sometimes the wood will separate a little bit and there's not a lot of room between, because that bolt only has this much. You don't need that much to conserve it into place. But so if it doesn't want to catch, just push it in and it will catch. And then you can tighten it up, okay? So you got these buckets on here. Now once you have that bucket done, now we're gonna go back and put the other buckets on. All right, so the next step is gonna be putting the buckets on the top. It takes a little longer. So what we're gonna do is, if you would go ahead and get one of your 2 feet sections without a bucket on it, you can take this thing here and just lay it across here. Again, bend it back down to here, and then you can put your buckets on. So once you're done with that, you can start putting these on. These will go, again, as you'll see, it's a lot easier to do it down here than it is to do it when it's in the air, especially the one on the top. But again, they'll just screw around here on the sides. And we have one for this bucket, this, and the top. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back with the next side. Once we've completed all these bucket installations, we can just lean this right back up. And you'll see those buckets should fall right down into place. And there they are. Right there in place. The only thing is, yep, okay. So that's what, then we can put the buckets around the side, and we'll go, once we're done with that, we'll go to the next step. So once you've completed stage 4, which you can see is really the most difficult task, those are pretty simple. Again, you want to go to your level. You want to adjust this level up so that it does what you need to do. And you see, when you level the level, then you can just adjust this bolt so that it's level. Got to make sure that you make sure that any type of recourse takes place. And as we say, close enough for government work. All right, then we go to this one over here. And you see this one over here is way off. So we have to adjust this one forward. We've got to move that leg up to pull it down that way. So we will lean this way. Gotta loosen that bolt. Adjust it. And there we go. Pretty straightforward. But now, as you notice, as you do anything, you've got to go back and re-verify this one is not moved, which it has. It's always playing with things that takes you some time. And there you go. So again, it doesn't have to be exactly level. The objective is that we have it as close to level as possible. Okay? This is stage 4. Stage 4 is simple. Stage 4 is really if you look at the design, it doesn't even show stage 4. Stage 4, the purpose of stage 4 is what's called an overrun or overflow. So when you're going this way, you can actually have them come down here and do something and then go back. That way shows that it actually flew past it and come back, but actually that's not actually a requirement in most of these designs, but we do have it. And so we're including that in here, and it's simply one bucket on the top. And again, that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And again, the way you level these out, again, this one, as you will see, we did not put riggers on these here. You can if you're in a lot of hilly place. We wouldn't recommend setting this up on a hilly place anyway. But if you've got you got some incline or something, you're trying to do something on, you can put riggers on here. But our thoughts was, if you look, come over here and look at this here, you'll see that by nature, this is sitting without doing any modifications at all to it. It's sitting at a level already because the ground is level. And most of these are going to be that way. But if for some reason you needed to move it, it's easy to do, right? I mean, you can just slide the leg up because there's not that much pressure on it. So you can do whatever you want to make it work. So we do have it set up for you so you can do that. All right, once you've completed putting all this together, the last stage is to put in your disc with your letters or your characters, whatever it is you decide you want them to fly that day. Now, you can make these. There's a downloaded file that you can download, and you can print them out on stickers and put them on board. What we did was print them out on paper and ran them through a Xeroxer. Ran them through a laminator, and then just cut them out. So you can do it that way. There's actually a company that will make vinyl ones for you, and we can provide that information also on the link. That will provide a link for you that you can buy them. I think the cost of that's like $125 for a complete set. So again, if you don't want to make them, you can get the professional ones done, and we do have that available for you too. So we're just going to go ahead. As you can see, it just sits in here. The ones that are in the back that are pointing down, we have to use some Velcro dots. We have Velcro dots for them. We just put a dot on the bolt that goes in there and then a dot on the back of the letter. So it just holds it in there. It's not heavy weight, so it doesn't require a lot. Right? The ones on the top, they're just going to sit down because no gravity. So we don't even put anything on these. Just try to make sure that they're straight up when you put them in, so that when we're viewing the video, we see that they're looking at it straight on and not at an angle. That's very important. Okay?
Okay, so now the course is complete, and it's time to fly.
Okay, so now that we've flown the course, it's time to take it apart. Taking it apart is pretty easy. The first thing we obviously want to do is we want to take these tabs out of it. They should just come out pretty easy. Some of them have Velcro strip, as we said before. These do not, because they're pretty straightforward. You just take your hand, you pick them up with no trouble at all. As long as you don't try to bend them. Then all you have to do is take the screw out the top. Now this is going to be really easy for you. Again, like we said, our recommendation would be to get you a nut driver so you don't wear out your fingers. But it's pretty easy. Set it like that. Take another one. They're pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And look, they stack right on top of each other without any trouble. And you keep the bolt inside of it so it don't lose the bolt and the washer. So taking it down is a lot easier than putting it up. Because you don't worry about balancing anything. You want to take down one of these tooth lifters first, because you're going to need to lean that big one backwards and have something to lean it on to take the pieces off. Alright, there's that. Done. Okay, so this one again, remember, we're going to go in reverse order like we did before. After you take down the 2-foot stands, you can just lean this over to the board like this, and then it's easy to take apart. So now we're just, I'm not going to film taking it apart, but it's just a matter of, we'll take apart the buckets first, and then we'll take the rest of it apart. All right, once you've taken the buckets off, then again, it's easy to come out. We can just slide this piece out right here, and it goes, this is one piece. Then we can slide this back up on top, or pull this piece off here, just like this. Take the rest of the buckets off and unloosen these. Unloosen these bolts here on the end so that that we can do this thing, and it's a piece of cake.
These NIST standards will also be used for the new Skills USA North Carolina State Drone Pilot Contest, coming this spring. The more practice your students have on this standard, the more competitive they will be. I hope you enjoyed this session, and learning about the NIST NFPA 2400 standards. These standards are now required as part of the ID11 Drone Technology 1 curriculum. If you have questions and need answers, please put your questions in the chat window, and it will be addressed via email. Thank you, and happy flying.